Tonight is part 3 of
Yes.
our IVF series. So we will be talking about our IVF story, so our personal journey with IVF.
Yes, correct.
Correct.
Without technical error.
This time with sound na. Yes. So we started our IVF journey back in February of 2020. So that was last year. It was around the time when the pandemic happened. So our treatment got a bit delayed. So we started to go to the clinic in February. We did all the initial tests, but then unfortunately, we cannot start a treatment yet because of the restrictions, right, with COVID. So we had to wait until June to officially start our treatment. So what we did during that time that we were waiting to start our treatment was just to prepare our body, right? We took supplements, and you also did you exercised, you meditated.
So yeah, there's a good way about the pandemic because only the bad thing is pandemic is really bad, right? But in a good way with us, like we got to prepare ourselves with this process of the IVF. So we got a chance to prepare, relax, no work, be healthy, sleep early. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
so,
because
sometimes there's a good way.
Yeah, like we just made the most out of it, because I would say it's important to also prepare, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally as well, because IVF is not a simple process. It's not easy. So I think the first step really is to prepare your mind and your emotions, right? Are you really ready for it? Because when you start the process, it will not go as smooth. It might not go as smoothly as you wanted it to, or sometimes there would be the cycle will fail, or your expected result will not really happen. So just need to prepare yourself emotionally, mentally as well. So yeah, that's very important.
So what's your biggest fear of doing the process? What's your biggest fear? Or why do you decide it?
Yeah, it was suggested by our doctor, right? Because we've been trying naturally for quite some time, and it wasn't happening for us. We didn't get pregnant, so our doctor suggested that we consider IVF. And then when we went to the clinic, of course, we needed to get to know what we were getting into, right? We researched, we also asked around, and of course
we also asked around, like, who had experience, who have tried the IVF.
Right, so that was why we
what's the most scary part? Like, what's the most
scary part?
What's, like,
well, at that point,
like during February, what's the threat? Aside from financial.
Yeah, financial, to be ready financially as well. So I think at that point, what my biggest fear was the injections, the thought of it, because I have never administered an injection on myself, right? It's always, I'm not scared, although I'm not scared of injections, I'm not scared of needles.
But it's just like you're doing it on yourself.
Myself.
Yeah, on
so
yourself,
that was a scary part, because I was trying to imagine, like, how do I do that? Like, how do I know the proper way of injecting, right? But it was very helpful because the clinic provided video.
How to do it, right?
Video guides, like videos for us to watch and how to do it properly. So at first it was scary, it was terrifying. So I remember the first night that I injected, right? It took me a few minutes before I actually did it, because
after a few days, then you're like
used to it.
Used to it, like.
Yes, you'd be surprised, because after a few days, it will just be
nothing.
Natural. Like, it's a normal process, I would say. And what really helped with managing the pain is putting on ice. So before I inject, I put ice on the area where I will inject, and it did really help. So it lessened the pain because it makes your skin numb, and I would say that is very, very helpful. Yeah.
Ice really helps. Like example, I remember I used to have a sa tawag anong buslot sa dunggan. Sa tawag may lap.
Piercing?
Yeah, before I used to have earrings. Then I do it. How do I say it? I do it on my own to put a hole here using a needle. So first I just put an ice, then I hold the needle, then boom, that's it.
So you didn't
it's easy.
feel the pain?
Yeah, no pain at all.
Yeah, so that was I would say.
How about your psychological thing? Like what makes you like
scared?
do it? Yeah, or scared?
Of course.
Or not holding you back? Like no, this is it.
What scared me emotionally, I think, is of course if it will not result to what we expect. Like of course the ultimate goal is to get pregnant, right? So I was thinking, what if like that we won't achieve that? So there's always that fear, right? What if the cycle doesn't what if the cycle fails, or what if during the surgery there are no eggs that will be collected? So you cannot help but to think about the possible outcomes. But in a way, it will also help to
get to know
prepare you. Get to know you.
Get to know yourself.
To prepare you for the possibilities, right? Because
so you're not. So because I'm not a girl, right? Like you're experiencing like trauma, like if no eggs, so you feel sad, something like that. But in the guy's side, like okay, like I don't know. I think every guy's. I like that. Yeah.
I would say like although your partner is there with you to support you, but they wouldn't fully understand what you're going through exactly because it's a different experience with a male partner, right? They can only support you as much, but then the support that you really need is different. It's something different because they cannot relate exactly with what you're going through. Only maybe those women that also went through the same or similar experience, I would say that will be able to fully understand what you're going through. Yeah, so it's important that you yourself, you're prepared mentally, emotionally, you're strong to go through the whole process, because although you have support system.
Do you also feel strong about the IVF will not like push through or go through, like something like that?
What do you mean, like if?
It's just fail. It's just a failed process. Like, are you already accepting that?
No, not that I accept it, but of course, like that's a possibility, right? So, you just need to prepare yourself for any outcome that might happen. So
how do you prepare that?
I guess you cannot really fully prepare yourself. You just have to have a brave spirit. You just have to be strong, think positive, and try to just approach it with, I would say, optimism, but at the same time, do not let go of that realistic side, right? Be also mindful of outcomes that might happen. So just be optimistic, but at the same time, add some realistic side of it. So we started it in June. So the injections, of course, that was physically draining. It was difficult, but as we do it every night, so it was almost 2 weeks. I have gotten used to it already, I would say. So I was able to manage the pain and also like the physical effect on my body. And then finally, when we were scheduled for surgery for egg collection, there's that fear again that what if
No eggs are collected.
Yeah, no eggs or little eggs will be collected. Only little eggs will be collected. So luckily on our first cycle, so we had 10 eggs. So during egg collection, I had 10 eggs, and then the day after, so there were 7 that fertilized, which is 70% success, right? Fertilization rate. So that was a good rate. I was pretty optimistic, really. I was happy with the results because you remember, like, when we started, the doctor said that since with the initial tests your count was on the low side, so initially we thought, right, that the issue really of our infertility was maybe on your side because it was
I didn't accept that.
Yeah, I mean, this is for them to also right to learn, or to right for them to also learn from our experience, right? So that was the initial notion. So we really thought that it's because of that, because John had a low sperm count. That's why the doctor.
But I know that's why when the result was in on the first round, I was like, I know what happened, so I know why it is so low. So that's why I'm very positive. Like, this is not true.
Because they say that the timing can also be a factor. Like, it's not consistent. Like, sometimes when the male partner will submit his sample for testing, at that point in time, maybe like he has little sample, or maybe the count is not as many, but then in the next time it's gonna be more like that. So it's not really.
That's why you need to be prepared.
Yeah, it depends.
That's why you need to be prepared also when you need to. They want to get sample on you. They want to get sperm on you. So you need to be prepared. Like, you have good sleep, good everything.
Yeah. So going back to that, my point is, initially we started with that notion, right? That it's going to be easy. Like, on that first cycle, I was very optimistic because I thought that IVF is going to address that problem, right? Because from the initial tests, they didn't see any issues on my part, right? My AMH level is okay, was high. So, I mean, going into starting the IVF treatment, I was very optimistic because I expected that we're gonna get pregnant right away with that cycle, that first cycle. But unfortunately, it didn't happen. So the pregnancy test was negative after we transferred after we did a fresh embryo transfer. That was 5 days after the egg collection. But luckily, because we had 3 embryos that made it to day 5, so 1 was transferred fresh, and then the 2 were frozen. So that was the first heartbreak, right? For us, for me especially. So I would say that was the most difficult part that I went through looking back, because of course when I would say I didn't know how to manage my expectations yet during that time. It was their first cycle, and then knowing
you were just expecting too much.
Maybe I was.
And your expectation was not there.
Yeah, so maybe I was too optimistic. Yeah, so because I thought, right, that there's really no issue on my part because all the tests were okay, and then IVF is supposed to be, since we'll be doing ICSI, so it's supposed to help address that issue, right? Because they're just going to inject the sperm, each of the sperm to the eggs and fertilize, right? So, and with the results that we got, like the fertilization rates and everything, so I was like, oh, this is very promising. So of course I was expecting
straight away.
Yes. So yeah, that was the biggest heartache for me, my first heartbreak. and I dealt with it.
Your first heartbreak since
In
your
the-
last heartbreak.
No, this is the first heartbreak in the IVF process,
okay.
right? I'm talking about IVF process,
Okay.
not love life. So I would say that was very difficult for me to accept because I'm someone who doesn't
Accept failures.
no, not accept, but I don't handle failure so easily. Like I'm the type of person who has a difficult time accepting failure because my personality is when I put my heart and my soul in something, when I really focus on something, I give it my all. I give
Wow.
it my 110%.
It's like a song. I give my
Give
all.
my all. So that was very heartbreaking because I had a lot of questions like what went wrong? I thought that I was doing everything perfectly, like ticking all the boxes. Like what went wrong, right? I had so many questions in my mind, like why? So it was very difficult to accept, and of course, like I felt like you cannot really fully understand what I was going through, right?
yeah.
Like
As far as I'm telling you, just move forward.
yeah, like that's the most that he can do, right? Just tell me those things, encourage me. I even remember that every time I cried, because I cried like almost every night during that time. Yeah, and then he will just tell me to stop crying because maybe his intention was just to make me strong, right? To move on from it. But then for me, like I felt like I was grieving.
It's not for you, then it's not for you. So let's move on.
For me, I felt like I was grieving because I felt like I was close because I already had the embryo in my uterus, right? And I was just waiting for it to implant successfully, and unfortunately it didn't. So I felt like I was close, but then why? Why didn't it push through, right? Why didn't it progress? So it was really very difficult for me to handle. And yeah, like I felt like I learned to cope with it on my own because although I have your support, my family's support, my friends' support, but of course there's really nobody that can help me move on but myself. Yeah. So you will only be encouraged by, your spirits will be lifted up by your friends, by your family, by your partner, but it's still up to you, right? How to cope with it. So I coped with it like based on my own pace. I was still grieving, I was still crying like for weeks, but then like after, maybe it's a way for me to also let it out, like pour my emotions, right? I didn't really ignore it.
Actually, it's best to let it out, cry, then hold it, then it will
just
like blow.
accumulate, and then so that's what I went through in the first cycle, and the most difficult part I would say during that time, dealing with a failure. And then what happened after that? So we
just
went
take a rest. Take a rest.
No, we went straight to another transfer. So the next,
after
a month or two maybe, we did another transfer, which is a frozen transfer this time, frozen embryo transfer, because we had 2 embryos left. And I remember the doctor told me that the embryos that I had were of good quality. They were all grade 1 embryos. So I was thinking, okay, I'll just go right into the second transfer. I was like, like I really wanted to do it right away because for me, I was chasing time, right? Like I was 38 during that time. So that was June. And then in October, I'll be turning 39. 39? 37, 30, 39. 39?
39.
39.
39.
Yeah, I'll be turning 39. So I was really concerned because for me, like every time I turn a year older, that means there's a possibility that my chances will decrease, right?
Yes. So I think it's a good
I was
way.
chasing time. I was really I was so impatient. I would say like, okay, go to the next, go do the next transfer right away.
So do you think like IVF is also good for young ones?
I mean, like, it
depends.
It depends. Like, we also see it
Because the doctor encouraged to do IVF when you are 35 above.
above
yeah?
35 above, and if after 6 months to 1 year of trying naturally, you still don't get pregnant, so they suggested
Go straight away with
yeah.
IVF, yeah.
Yeah, but
So I think that's your suggestion, or that's your advice.
I wouldn't say that I push for it, but that's an option that they can take, right? Because I wouldn't really recommend it to everyone, because of course you have to know what you're getting into. You have to be prepared, right?
Like, I mean, like when you're 35, then you've tried it for 6 months and nothing happens, then I think your advice is go straight to IVF.
No, that's what I said. It's not that I'm advising them to do it, but it's an option that they can take, right? But if they'd rather wait and just still try naturally, then they can still do it. It's a personal preference. And also, like, for LGBT, our friends in the LGBT community, right? That's also an option, because they can, if they want to have their own child, right? So they opt to do IVF. They just need a donor sperm or a donor egg, depending on where they're like girl.
Depends on the couple.
Yeah. Like, if they're both male, then they can have a donor egg, and then the sperm will come from either of them, so they can still have their own child, right? So that's not just an option for us couples, but also for our friends in the LGBTQ community.
Yeah.
And so where was I? So on the second transfer, right? So the second transfer, I was still I was optimistic still. Yeah, I was thinking maybe the first embryo
was just a test.
I mean, because it's also one reason that the embryo won't implant as well is if there are chromosomal abnormalities. So if the embryo is not a perfect embryo, if there are abnormalities,
but they
the
said it's a
reaction
grade
of the
1.
body. Yeah, but it's just based on specific criteria, like, but it doesn't really guarantee, because it didn't go through genetic testing, right? So it doesn't really test if there are chromosomal abnormalities. They wouldn't see that, not unless they do a genetic testing, which our clinic doesn't offer, and it also costs so much, so we didn't do that. So with our first embryo, so I was thinking maybe like there was a problem there's a chromosomal abnormality, so that's why he did an implant, because your body's natural reaction is to reject the embryo if it has chromosomal abnormalities. That's why, like, it does an implant, or if it results to a pregnancy later on in the pregnancy, it will result to a miscarriage. So those things can happen, right? With the process.
If you don't have the genetic testing, right?
I mean, like, with genetic testing,
It's just testing.
Yeah, it will just test if there are abnormalities, and it gives them the option to select other embryos if they see that this embryo has abnormalities or something. But again, it wouldn't change the quality of the embryo. It wouldn't improve the quality of the embryo. And our doctor also said that sometimes, in some cases, it can also damage the
egg,
the embryo, like, because it's like a biopsy, right? They take a sample, they take part of the embryo and then test that one.
Yeah, so there's a pros and cons.
Yeah, that's what he said, right? When we asked him, he said, like, that can also happen. So that's why in their clinic they don't do that.
Yeah, as far as my experience with the IVF, for me, it's just follow the process, what the doctor advised you.
Yeah, you have to trust your fertility
Just trust the doctor. That's it. That's all.
So with the second transfer, it also failed, so it didn't implant successfully. So my period came before the pregnancy blood test, and again I was disappointed, and I had a lot of questions, but I got better at managing the failure.
On the second time.
Like, the second time.
So the second time, are you really expecting like this is it, or what's your expectation?
I was hoping, but then there's also that side wherein like the first outcome can repeat, right? Like,
so you just like, okay, whatever happens, that's it. Yeah, I'm done my crying in the
rain.
in the first stage.
Yeah, I still
in the
cried
first
on the second
transfer. Then
on the second transfer failing, but I would say like in terms of managing the failure, I got a little bit better at it. So I said like, okay, maybe I will explore why this is happening, right? Because it's been happening 2 times already, and I was always holding on to that fact that our specialist said that our embryos are of good quality. So it's like, is there something else that I can do to improve my chances the next time that we do the transfer? So because our clinic has a forum for their patients, right? So there's this Facebook group that the patients created for us to just share our experiences, or maybe get advice from others who went through similar experiences like that. So it was very helpful, like for us to get information as well as emotional support from the group, right? Because these women also are going through the same or similar experience, process, treatment, so they can totally relate, right? So I would say that was very helpful. So in the forum, like some of them have been through an immunology protocol. So there's a doctor here in Sydney who specializes in the immunology protocol. So what that investigates or looks into is if you have issues with your thyroid or your immune system, that might impact the implantation of the embryo. Because I learned that sometimes our body will have like higher than normal levels of like natural killer cells, for example. So we all have natural killer cells because it's our body's defense to combat viruses or infections or anything that our body would perceive as a threat or can harm our body. But in other cases, these natural killer cells would be higher than normal. So what it does sometimes is it can attack the embryo, because
anything comes in, something
not
like that.
Not really, but then remember, the embryo is a combination of cells from both myself and from you, right? So what it can recognize is only that coming from me. So it wouldn't recognize the cells that come from you, right? Because it's a foreign object for my cells, right? So sometimes that can happen. So I explored that treatment. So we went to Dr. Matthias that was a bit far, right?
Yes.
We went to Miranda, so that was a bit far from where we live. But then I was thinking, I'd rather do it than think about what if, right? What if I did this? What if I did that? So I didn't push through with a third transfer yet. So when I talked with our IVF specialist, he suggested that I do a new cycle because I only have one embryo left from the first cycle, right? He said, like, let's just do a fresh cycle so that we can collect new eggs before you turn 39.
Oh, 39.
Not 40, 39, so at least we can still bank some eggs, right? So that at least we can
see.
have
So just
more.
follow the process, follow the doctors. That's it.
Yeah. So So I did a new cycle. So that means I injected again. I went through the whole stimulation process again, the second time. And then along with that, I did the immunology protocol. So I did a lot of blood tests. So I remember there were around 20 something tubes of blood that they got from me in one go. So a lot of blood was taken for me just to do that.
Do you have photos? Do you have photos of that?
I don't know. I think so. But the doctor, this is another doctor, not from our IVF clinic. This is a specialist, the immunology specialist. So
another payment again.
Yes, it was expensive. Like the checkups were like $200. $300 first, and then $200 on the succeeding visits. And then with the results, so he said that my thyroid antibodies were higher than normal, although it doesn't mean that I have a thyroid condition or illness, but it's just that it's higher than normal. So that's why he put me on a protocol wherein I need to do blood thinner injections. I need to be on steroids, antibiotics. I think there were a lot of meds that he prescribed me to take, and also progesterone pessaries or suppositories that was 3 times a day, right? So it was like a lot of meds that I needed to take. And apart from that, days before the transfer, I had to be hospitalized to get the infusion. So there's this, I forgot the name, but it's like an IV. So, like the dextrose, but
what's inside is
what's inside is like a protein, like a soy protein sort of thing. Like it's supposed to coat the antibodies so that they won't attack my embryo. So it's like that.
The embryo will come in.
Yeah, after the transfer. So it was like 2 days before the transfer, I did that. So I was in the hospital alone because
of COVID.
That was the pandemic. John cannot be with me, so I was alone there. I was a bit anxious because what will I do in that whole day? Just
watch Netflix
by myself. So I ended up watching my K-drama during that time and just enjoying the hospital food. Good thing, the hospital food was good, and we had to pay $1,500 for that treatment. Yeah, close to $2,000. It wasn't cheap. Yeah, so we did a second cycle, right? So there, by that time I already had my egg collection. Yeah, but
so which one is the first one? The egg collection or the thyroid thing?
I did the tests first, but the infusion was after the
collection. Okay.
Yeah, because it was also a long treatment process, right? I had to be on steroids for I think 2 weeks, like that. So I had meds to take on that immunology protocol. So in our second cycle, that was a bad cycle.
Why do you think it's bad?
Because they only collected 7 eggs.
Yeah.
7 eggs, and then out of the 7 eggs, I think 3 fertilized on the next day. And then on the 5th day, unfortunately, there was only 1 that made it to day 5. And then that 1 embryo is not of good quality. It was grade 3 embryo. So unlike our first cycle where the grade was grade 1, this time it's a grade 3 embryo. But the doctor still said let's just push through with it because it still qualifies for the transfer, even if it's a grade 3. There are grade 3 embryos that result to a pregnancy, so there's still hope. So yeah, we proceeded with the transfer, and then I already had my immunology treatment, right? I already had that infusion.
I think the cause of the grade 3 Embryo is because you are stressed, something like that, I think.
I don't know. Like you just cannot guarantee, right? Like every time it's gonna be of good quality. There are many factors that can impact, the quality of the embryos that you'll end up with. So that's what happened, right? We ended up still transferring that, but I was still hopeful because we had the immunology treatment, right? So I was like, maybe
it will still go.
Yeah, because I was thinking like the problem was my body itself. So maybe my body is rejecting the embryo. That's why it's not implanting successfully. But it still failed, even though we spent so much on that immunology treatment. I wouldn't say like we shouldn't have gone through it, but at least we tried.
Yeah.
At least we tried. Like we tried different treatments that can help her work, right? Because the doctor said that the success of the implantation will depend on the seed or the soil. So the seed is the embryo itself, right? That will be implanted, will be transferred. And the soil is me, my uterus, my body, right? So it's either the problem is with the seed, if the embryo has chromosomal abnormalities, or the soil, if my body itself has issues or has problems. On our third transfer, that was, I remember that was even a day before my birthday when I had my egg collection. So I had surgery a day before my birthday, a day before I turned 39. But I didn't really care because for me, like I was chasing time, right? I was really concerned with time. So we had our third transfer in November last year. And then after that, so it failed again. So we just decided to take a break. So we were like, after the third transfer. So we were thinking.
The third transfer was the third grade 3, right? That's the grade 3.
So we were thinking, anyway, Christmas is approaching, New Year's approaching, so let's just enjoy the holidays because it was also difficult to go through successive failures, right? It was difficult to deal with. I didn't know what else to do anymore because for me, like, I already did the immunology protocol and I also like had a new cycle, but still, right? Like I was doing all the best that I can possibly do. So I was like, I'll just take a rest, like what we try naturally, what if, like so let's just enjoy the holidays, let's just not stress ourselves, let's just not pressure ourselves, let's just enjoy the Christmas and New Year. So that's what happened. We took a break and after November, so we just enjoy the holidays and then we went back to the clinic in January. January. So when we talked to our fertility specialist, so we said, okay, you've had 3 failed transfers already. So none of the embryos implanted successfully. So we can start to investigate why. So he endorsed me to do different tests again. So blood tests again and then scan. So there's this scan which is not really like a normal ultrasound. It's called hysterogram or something. And then there's also other tests that will check my tubes, just a more detailed ultrasound to really look into the possible reasons why all our transfers are failing. So we did that. With my thyroid antibodies, he said like, yeah, it's a bit higher than normal, but it's not really a big concern. He said that I don't really need to take meds or something. So it's different from what the immunologist said, right? Like he had me on a lot of antibiotics, steroids, and then like blood thinners. So that's injection every night, right? So this time, like our doctor wasn't so concerned with my thyroid antibodies level. He said like it's okay, it doesn't need treatment. So with the scan, but the ultrasound, like the hysterogram or something. Well, that's when they found out that both my ovaries are tethered. So what that means is both my left and my right ovaries are stuck to my uterus.
Yeah, so it's like...
So yeah, it's stuck like pilit. So that's what was the result of that ultrasound, detailed ultrasound. And so he endorsed me to a specialist on endometriosis. Yeah, because he suspected that it's endometriosis that's causing my ovaries to stick to my uterus. So that was confirmed when we went to the specialist. So the doctor said he's really confident that
that's the
it's
problem.
what's causing it. Yeah, that I have endometriosis.
How come they cannot determine that one in the first stage, right?
Yeah, so the first tests before starting IVF, it's just a normal ultrasound. Right? It's a normal ultrasound that doesn't really look into that level of detail. But when you have, because with the IVF clinic, I would say like maybe, but what I know is that with IVF clinics, they would assume that you go to their clinic for you to get the IVF treatment, right? Not for them to investigate why you're not getting pregnant. If you want to investigate why you're not getting pregnant, you go to a gynecologist, for example, right? Or to a specialist. So but with IVF clinics, they usually start investigating after the second or the third failed transfer. Like
so maybe you will advise someone like do it another way, not going to the IVF.
Yeah, that's also an option that they can take. Yeah, get yourself checked first to make sure like
before
there's
you go to
nothing
IVF,
that you should address first before going through IVF. Yeah, but yeah, with that condition, so I found out that I have endometriosis, but the doctor said we can only confirm 100% if you go through a surgery, right? Like a laparoscopy. So what the laparoscopy will do is they're going to dig holes in my abdomen, and then there's a probe that has a camera in it, which will really see what's inside. So that will really confirm.
You're gonna detect that on during the scan?
No, because my ovaries are stuck to my uterus, right? So it's been between my uterus and my
So they need
ovary.
to open and check it from there?
Yeah, so they have to go inside and really check it.
I
and
think
at
it
the
depends
same
on the
time,
scenario, how they first.
No, like they say like with the laparoscopy, it's the method that they can confirm that you indeed have. With the laparoscopy, it's not necessarily that they're going to remove the endometriosis. It's only for them to see what's inside, right?
So that's the process name.
Yeah, laparoscopy.
Okay.
So inserting that probe to look at what's inside. There's a camera. But in my case, because the doctor was confident that
that's the problem
I have
already.
Yeah, because he said like he has handled a lot of cases already, right? And knowing the symptoms, so he can already tell. So he was kind of confident that you have endometriosis. So because I also have very painful periods, so that's also one thing that you should be mindful about. If you have very painful periods, that's not normal. Yeah, it could be a sign that you have underlying conditions. Like in my case, ever since I have had my period, I always had very, very painful periods to the point that sometimes I faint. Yeah, so looking back, I thought that was normal. I thought that is always the case for women, like every time we get our periods. But yeah, only later that I realized that it's not normal. It's only a symptom of an underlying condition. So in my case, endometriosis. So I went through a surgery which is called a keyhole surgery. So laparoscopic surgery. So there were 5 holes that they dug in my abdomen, and then they removed all the endometriosis. So endometriosis is I would say
how
like
many were?
a lot. We saw the photos, right? Like after we went back to him like 3 weeks after. So he showed us the photos. There were a lot of
Like how many a lot? Like more than 10?
yeah, more than 10.
Okay.
Yep. So they also did a biopsy, and luckily, like, it's all normal. But there were a lot, really. Like, you can see the dark
The doctor
blood.
was really professional.
It's like blood that are already like
blood clot. I don't know, like blood, like a bubble gum.
yeah, like it sticks.
Yeah, sticky blood, sticky blood.
Yeah. So endometriosis is affecting 1 of 10 women. So that's how serious it is, right? It's a condition that like affects a lot of women, and most of us don't even know it that we have it. So it's a condition wherein like the tissues that normally lines our uterus grows outside the uterus. So it can either grow like in your ovaries, in your fallopian tubes, or sometimes even in your intestines. So they can grow everywhere, like outside the uterus. So that causes pain every time we have a period, right? Because these tissues grow outside. So that's what happened to me. So luckily, the doctor was able to remove everything in one go. That took around 2 hours of surgery. He said, like, if I cannot remove everything, you might need to do another surgery. So that, I was worried about that. Like, I don't want to go through another surgery. I hope that everything will be removed. So luckily, everything was removed on that surgery. So it took me at least 3 weeks to recover. That was very difficult process. Like, I was in the hospital. I cannot even move.
Yeah, we were not expecting that that's the output or the outcome of the surgery, because the doctor just said, like, it's just a simple, like, chill.
He made it sound so simple, but to be honest, like, it was so difficult. Like, I cannot even move. I cannot even. I was on catheter because I cannot.
Even said, like,
be
the
on
next
my
day you
own.
can go work, or the next few days.
No, he said like
a few days?
7 days.
7 days,
after.
yeah.
So 7 days after. So I have to be on bed rest for 7 days. But the actual
So the doctor
recovery
was telling a lie.
No. I think like it depends on the patients. Maybe it just took longer for me to really recover. So I cannot even stand like easily, because it was so painful. Really, like the wounds. I had 5 wounds, right? And then of course inside my body is still healing, right? Because they removed a lot of my endometriosis. So it took me, I think, at least 3 weeks.
Yes, 3 weeks to really recover.
Recover, I would say, like, I can now...
or maybe 4.
I can now get up from bed comfortably. There's minimal pain when I get up, or when I stand, when I walk, like that. It was very difficult, but I would say it was helpful because...
Yeah. It did improve.
I would say, like, it made me aware as well of my body, right? Like, I didn't know that going into the first cycle or starting my IVF treatment, I didn't know that I had endometriosis. So it was like a blessing in disguise as well that my previous transfers failed, because it paved the way for me to know that I have that condition. I have endometriosis, and so that it can be addressed, right? I had a surgery, and
but you said like your period was improving?
Yeah, it did improve, because before, every time I had my period, it was so painful. But right after I had the surgery, it lessened. Yeah, it definitely helped. And that's the expectation that the doctor told me as well, right? Like, after this, you won't feel so much pain anymore during your periods, like that. So
maybe if you're women, if you're suffering something so less before, then maybe try to consider this process.
I think you have to be proactive as well, because not everything will be given to you by the IVF clinic. As what I've said, the IVF clinic is really focused on the IVF treatment, right? But they don't really go through in detail like why you're not getting pregnant. So if you want to do that first before going before starting your IVF journey, you can also do that. Like check first, like if you feel like you have painful periods, if you might want to get yourself checked first, right? Don't be scared to go through all these tests, because this will make you aware of your body and what underlying conditions you may have, and still do something about it right before it's too late.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say like it's also a wake-up call for me. It's an awareness for me as well, like as a woman, and also be able to share that experience with other women as well, who might be going through a similar process, right? Not necessarily women who are going through IVF, but women who are going through painful periods. So it might, trigger them to also get themselves checked. Yeah, that's one thing I can.
Yeah, that's why also we are also sharing
encourage.
this. Yeah, this podcast.
Yeah.
We want everyone to
learn from what we went through. Yeah, so that's what happened. Like that's the latest. Yeah. So we took a break first, right? Because we had to deal with those health conditions, with those issues first. So that taught me a lot as well, because before I was so impatient, right? I was really like so determined to do it as soon as possible, right? Like everything has to be done as soon as possible. Every box has to be ticked like that. And I thought that it guaranteed, it warranted the outcome that I wanted, but it doesn't. It didn't, right? So it makes you realize a lot of things going through all these failures. It makes you, I would say, stronger as a person as well, because if you're going through all these difficult times, of course it's not easy. It's not something that you would wish upon anybody to go through, right? It's really difficult. But I would say you can learn a lot from it. It makes you stronger as a person. It makes your faith grow stronger, even though like it wasn't given to us. It wasn't we didn't achieve the outcome that we hoped for every time we had the transfer, right? We're hoping to get pregnant, but it didn't happen. But it makes your faith grow stronger, because you realize that this might be a way for you to this is God's way of preparing you for the right time, right? So you just have to keep the faith, I would say. It's not easy at all. Like there are times that I would question God. There are times that I would just, be so confused, like why? Why? Especially knowing that, someone got pregnant, your friend got pregnant, or someone got pregnant. Like hearing those news, at first you'll be so happy and delighted, but then suddenly when it sinks in, and then you realize that one thing that you really want for yourself is happening to other people, but not happening to you. It's difficult to deal with as well, right? But it's not that you're not happy for them, but it's just that you want it so bad that it's so difficult to process, right?
Yes.
So you have to be, I would say, emotionally tough. Tough, yeah. And I would say as well, like based on the experiences that we went through, based on all the ups and downs, it was a roller coaster ride. I would say that on the male side, on your partner's side, even though like in terms of the contribution, right, you would say like it's not really as much as what the female contribution is, but I would say the male partner plays a big part, a huge part in the whole process as well, because you know what, we just sometimes all we need is just a hug, or maybe just to assure that everything will be okay, like just to empathize with us, to also recognize our grief when we're going through that grief, not to shut down your emotions or not to invalidate your feelings, but to recognize it and make you feel that they're there for you. So I would say like for the male partners, just be sensitive to what your partner is going through. If your partner is crying or is grieving, just understand that process, right? Don't invalidate it, because it's not something that, you know, there's really no formula of how you should go through the process or deal with it. It's case to case basis, right? Like
I'm just like being positive at that time. Like if it doesn't happen, then it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I think maybe some guys, I think some guys, they will like really be upset of their partner because how come it's not working? Maybe, but for on my side, it's like, no, if it doesn't happen, then
because do you remember, like,
let's move on.
Do you remember, like, it has also taken a toll on our relationship, I would say, because there would be times wherein you get into fights because maybe it's the
hormones?
heavy. I mean, like the emotions is so heavy to deal with, right? So and the pressure is so difficult to deal with, especially like before a transfer. I noticed that in myself. Like, I get so pressured because I'm like, maybe subconsciously it affects me and how my mood is, how I deal with you. So I'm not in my best mood, and then also considering there are also hormones that I take, right? So it also impacts my mood. So sometimes, like, we'll just argue for the littlest of things, right? But that can happen, right? I also heard from other couples who are going through IVF that it also happens to them. Like, they just have the shortest of patience for their partner or for their friends or their colleagues. So just be prepared for those things. Like,
I feel also like if you're going through this process, maybe join a community. Yeah, at least you will hear what they are going through that time. So at least you can relate. And if you can relate, then you can just ignore, like, oh, okay, this is normal. You will just feel like, okay, whatever happening to me is normal.
It's normal.
You will not be
you're not
questioning.
alone.
So
that's why, like, I think it helped me as well, like joining the forums, reading the forums, the posts there, because somehow it provided an assurance that what I'm going through is normal. Like, other couples who are going through IVF are also going through a similar, or sometimes even worse, right?
Worse,
than me.
Like,
So it really helps, right? Don't just deal with it on your own. Just try to get support. And also, like, the clinic has a psychologist as well to do counseling. So if you need that, although I didn't go through it, but there's also that kind of assistance that they can offer you, because of course they know that emotionally it's really draining. It's not easy. So they have that help. They have counseling. They offer counseling for you. Let's read some comments. Ooh.
There's no comment.
Hello, you have from Maricel. You just want to ask. You have RH blood type incompatibility. I cannot recall if we have this test, but we had blood tests, both of us, but it wasn't raised to us as a concern by the doctor that there's an incompatibility or there's an issue with our blood type. So I don't think
so. Yeah,
but for sure, like, this was part maybe of the things that they checked in the initial blood tests. Yes. So I'm not very familiar with the RH blood type incompatibility, but maybe it was part of the initial tests. So
okay,
that's our IVF story.
I hope you enjoy the story. Like, it's
so
very long.
It doesn't stop here. So we'll still take you through our journey until we get that outcome that we've been praying for, right? For sure, we will let you know. But we will remain optimistic. We will remain positive. Like, there's a lot of
not
lessons.
COVID positive.
Not COVID positive. There's a lot of lessons that we learned through this experience, but it really helps to remain positive and to remain faithful, right? Just trust God and His timing and His.
And don't forget to pray.
Don't forget to pray, because faith will really help you get through this difficult process. It's very difficult, but of course, just hold on to your faith and your trust in God, and hold on to the support of of your partner, your friends, your family. So yeah, that definitely helps.
And trust the process.
Trust the process.
Yeah, trust your doctor. Yeah,
Trust your
I think
doctor.
They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And also, ask. Yeah, if you are questioning yourself why, then just ask the doctor. Then
Yeah,
maybe ask. Because if you don't ask, then nothing will happen.
Because with me, right, I Google a lot, I research a lot. So by the time I talk to the doctor, I already have this list of questions, right? I'm so proactive in dealing with it.
Because
So I don't just
you're
wait.
paying your doctor that day.
I don't just wait for the doctor to say like, okay, do this, do that.
Yeah.
I already come prepared before the checkup, right? I would say like, what about this? What about that? Can we do this? Can we do that? So I would say that also helped, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe,
So ask, do research, like it's just you.
yeah. And like just
Okay.
be open to any possibility, right? Just be prepared for anything. It's not a perfect solution. It's not a perfect way to get to the outcome right away, but it's if you want to take that option, if you want to do the IVF treatment, just be prepared.
Yes.
That's my
correct.
advice. Just be prepared and be aware of your body. Listen to your body. That's very important.
Okay, so
Yeah, I think that's it.
yeah, I don't have any more.
Yeah, my mom said, do your part and God will do the rest. Very true, Mom.
Yes, correct. Anyway, guys, so I think we're ending up our podcast.
But let me
Yeah.
just say that after our episode last week, when we shared about the IVF process, some of our friends reached out to us and told us that they also went through IVF. So I just like to tell them thank you and that you were brave. You're very brave to go through this very difficult process. So yeah, I just won't say their names, but I would just like to tell them that we appreciate you reaching out to us and letting us know that you also are going through the same process. So
You are not
it's very
alone.
comforting. Yeah, it's very comforting. I would say like encouraging each other helps a lot, right? Knowing that you're not going through this alone. So it definitely lifts your spirits up. Correct.
And also,
Kaya mo yan.
if you have also friends doing IVF, you can also share this podcast, and maybe this can help them, or learn from it. Okay, do you have anything else?
That's all, folks.
That's all.
That's all.
Okay,
folks.
so thanks guys for watching our podcast.
Yes, and we'll see you again next Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Right, stay tuned.
Thank
Have
you.
a good evening. Bye.
Bye bye.